Well, hey there, everybody. So I wanted to walk through the steps to create our next project, and that is we're going to have an image show up on a web page, and have that image morph on its own through a series of sub images, kind of like a GIF, only that we're going to make those sub images ourselves, and we're going to have the code get the next image and cycle through that and keep doing that again and again and again. Um, so what image you choose is up to you. It can be something off the internet, just a random picture. It can be your favorite location in the world. It can be a picture from your phone. Doesn't really matter. Just pay attention to what type of file it is when you start to save it and whatnot. So I'm going to walk through this sheet. There was an error that I noticed. Thanks to Denali for finding it for me. So I had you create a new folder and had you call it image anim, the word image, and then I switched suddenly in the code and started referring to it as img anim. So if you started this previously and your image didn't show up, that would be why. So let's start with that. So if you go to your files section, your file app, I guess. Here's all of the files that are on my Chromebook. Inside my downloads is this guy here. That is my website too, and this is junk. So I'll delete that. Here are the three HTML files that we have: index, greeting, and then the rollover. Here's my images folder, and here are the picture from the greeting page, and then the rollover. Roll one is the picture of the nice family, and roll two is the picture where they're all kind of morphed out a little bit. So what we're going to do, what this is saying, is to go into that folder, go inside images, and create a new folder and call it img anim. So we'll do that now. So I'm inside my images folder. I'm going to right click, I think, oh, there it was, choose new folder and call that, call this, rename img capital A anim. Right now there's nothing in that folder. I just made it. And so I'm going to put the picture, the raw picture that I want into this directory here. So I think I have it, thought I did. No. Is it in here? No, it's not in there either. There we go. So this is the picture that I'm going to morph. It's me out on the trails in Fort Ord. And how you choose to morph it, I'll show you the different ways that you can do that. But that's just me out on the trail, all alone there, social distancing. And that's the image that I'm going to change. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save that to that image anim directory, and I'll just drag it down there. So you can download it to that. There's, however you can. You want to make sure, though, that inside img anim is this file, and if you save it as img0, then you'll have then everything should work. So let's test and see if that is in fact going to work. So I'm going to skip the next couple of steps, and I'm going to grab the HTML itself here, including the open HTML, and scroll down here until I get to the close. That's it. Control C. I'm going to then go to my text editor. I'm just going to go Control V, paste. There it all is. There's all the code that just copied over. And notice that it's going inside my images folder into img anim and to find img0. So that's the path that it's going to take. I'm going to save this file now. And this, I think I asked you to save it as up at the top of this guy, save it as image animation.html. Alrighty, so we'll do that. I'm inside my website too. That's where I want it to be saved. And so I'm going to wipe all this stuff out and save it as image animation.html. And if I do that, there we go, and save, then I can see that it thinks that it's an HTML page and all the tags are there, and things that are surrounded by text are red, and we're off to the races. That looks fine. All right, let's see if that page actually worked out right. So here now now I have 4 files. Here's the image animation page, and if I made moment of truth, double click on this, there it is. So there's some starter code here to put in a title. I do have this start button. It's probably going to error if I were to click on that now, but sure enough, that's the original picture. So that's great. All right, so we've got our basic page showing, and the first image is there. So how do you morph it? What are you gonna do for that? I'd recommend that you go to pixlr.com and you're going to open up that starting image, and then I'll show you different ways that you can modify it. So I believe this is Pixlr, and if you go here, just a little FYI, there's the image there. So you can sign in. I noticed that this had a little bit of a problem on the login. I got an error message when I tried to do that. So if that happens, just don't log in. We're doing the Pixlr X for Express. There it is. And so if you have a history, it somehow remembered me. There it is. So there's my image 0. So I'm going to load that again just to show you. Click on that guy, and I'm now going to navigate. Here's my IMG anim, and there's 0. And so there it is. So what kinds of things can you do to change it? Well, one thing you could do is that you could put in a series of words, like 8 words. So if you have some expression or you want something to happen, and you could fill that in. So I'll click up here, and I'll add a new text layer. And well, that's a cute little thing. I don't know where that came from, but I could write, if I wanted that to show up, I could do that. Never regret anything that made you smile. Nice sentiment. Maybe I want that to be all one. Come on, man. I could also do it up here. Select all that and make that a particular color. Lovely purple. Anyway, you got the general idea. So you could have some words to it, and you're going to save this repeatedly. You'll save it as image 1, image 2, image 3, image 4, image 5, and so on. And I would keep adding a word to this until I got to the end. So that's, again, not craziness, but it's one thing that you can do. The other thing that you can do is modify how it looks, which is what I did on mine. So I could change the hue, and instead of it being that shade of blue, just to have it change it over time, change these values by 10, 20, 50, something like that. And you'd see that me change colors between the shirt and the glasses especially. The rest of it will too, but it's mostly gray. The colors are kind of muted in that photograph. There's a few other things that you can do. You can make it brighter or lighter and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's not quite what I wanted it to do. The filters, that might work. So the dehaze could be kind of an interesting thing. That's from 0 to 100. So I could move that by a factor of 10 every time and just get less hazy, I guess, whatever that means. I liked pixelate too. That was one that I was thinking of doing. So here it's each pixel is size 1, and they're going to get slowly more and more pixelated until it ends up to being one giant pixel. I might not go all the way to 100. Maybe it might go to something like 90-ish. That can still kind of see who it is. I thought mosaic was cool too. Go to mosaic, and you're gonna get there you go. That's still me. You can decide where you want it to stop. What I'm looking for is about um, uh, between 8 and 10 sub images that you're gonna utilize. You could do these things too. It's a little harder to tell exactly what that is. So if I wanted to morph my face, similar to what I did with those other folks, I could, and I'd keep doing it again and again and again, and eventually I'd be like all twisted up. So to restore it, no. Anyway, might be easier just to load the picture again. That's pretty close. All right. So those are different things that you're going to do. And what I did on mine, just so that you know, I just went to adjust, and I just changed the hue. And if you were to do that, the hue is a range from negative 180 to positive 180. And so I think I changed it by 50. So I started at, I think I started at negative 150, and I went up to positive 150. And so that's that. That part is, can I delete this? Here we go. Maybe. All right, we'll just hide it. So every time that you make a change, you're going to want to save that as a new file, and you can save it right to your img anim folder. So this is going to be image 1, and you're going to download that. And I believe it defaults to that, to your downloads is most likely where it's going to end up. And it seems like it's taken, there it goes. Well, whatever. So that's image 1. And then I'd go back there, and I'm going to keep adjusting this by a factor of 50. So that's what it was. And so it doesn't go back to the original. It goes back to what you have it. So if I go 50 again, and I'm going to keep doing that again and again and again, keep saving it as another change of 50. And eventually I'll get back to that blue that it was originally, or pretty darn close to it. And that'll be fine. All right. So you can take some time now, and that's what you're going to want to do. Modify that picture so that there's a slight change to it over and over and over again. And that's it. And where you end up with starting at image 0 and going to image 7, 8, 9, something along those. That would give you the 10. All right. So you can pause this, do your bit, and then restart. Okay. So I already have my images done. Here they are, and kind of a weird order, but I do have image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have a total of 9 images, and you're going to download all of them, guys, and that looks great. And now I'm going to drag them into my image anim folder, or img anim. to be more specific. And there they all go. So now that looks great. All right. Let's talk for a second about what I asked you to create. So what we did in our code is I gave you the starting of a couple of variables and then a button that is just going to call that's when clicked is going to call begin. So this is a list. So this is known as an array, and in App Inventor, they were just lists. We would create an empty list, or we would stuff it full of answers and questions and whatnot, and you were off to the races. So what I'm doing in here is I'm storing the path that is to get to each of those different images. And so notice that it's going to look from my website to folder, go into the images, call image anim, and then call image 0. In the second slot is image 1. In the third, it's image 2 and image 3, and so on and so forth. One thing that's confusing, in App Inventor, the first element was indexed at 1. But in most other languages, the first indexed is at position 0. So 0 would call image 0. So these numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's actually the index number where that image is located in those slots. If you have 10 images, then you're going to want to put a comma in here and add image 9. If you have less than that, you're going to want to delete that and also the comma. So the last one should not have a comma next to it. This is going to allow me to, that comma says, okay, put that in another cell of my list. All right, so src list is an array that is going to hold all of these paths, and that's indexed by a number starting at 0 and going to 1 less than however many there actually are. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to keep track of which where we are in that, so that when I want to get the next one, I can just add 1 to it. And then loop count is what we can do at the end if I want it to stop. So we're going to have a button, it's going to start it, and I might have it cycle through a bunch of times. And then after it's done that 3 or 4 or 5 times, however many you like, then we'll stop this guy. I do have a function called begin, and I've given you some starter. So if I go to my image anim, get rid of that one, and click on start, it should say, oh, hello. All right, so what that means is that I know my call is good. I've worked with students before, and there's something a little off. They capitalize begin, they misspell it, they add 2 N's, something like that, and they write all this code inside their function, but it doesn't work, and it's something really, really small. So if your code doesn't start here, doesn't do this alert, there's a problem between the button and the function that we wrote. So this is saying on click call begin. So it's looking inside here and says, oh wait, here's begin. I'm supposed to alert hello. Okay, I'll do that. So that should work. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. So there's our code. Here I've talked a little bit about what src list is all about. And so now what I want to do is I'm going to delete that that alert, and I'm going to add this one line and see if I can get my 5th picture to show up. So you have to have at least 6 in your list. So I'm going to copy that guy. I'm going to go over to my list. I'm going to replace this line here with that. So now what should happen is that when the page loads, it's going to load at image 0. I'm going to click on this. It's going to call begin. Begin's going to come up here. It's going to find this picture that I've got, and it's going to set the source of for that image from this to whatever's in the sixth spot, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to paste it in that guy. So if you have at least 6 slots, that should work. I'm going to save it. And let's see if that now works. I'll reload and click on this, and it's a different picture, right? So it started with me being in my very nice blue shirt, blue sunglasses, and when I click, suddenly it changes to red. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I've got that working, and so it was just one other thing that was going on. So then the next thing we want to do is, okay, so let's change that, and instead of saying I just open up number 5 or open up number 6, I want it to go to the next one. So that's at the beginning of all this. You'll remember that we created this index variable at index 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to increment that by 1. This is a line that will do that. It's exactly the same format as what you used to do in App Inventor. So if we had a score, we wanted the score to go up by 5, we would set the score to get the score plus 5. We want the index to increase by 1. So this is what it would look like in App Inventor. This is what it looks like in text. I'm going to assign index to the current value of index, 0, add 1 to it. Great. Now set index to that new number. It went from 0 to 1. Now when I do that, I'm going to, it's going to be displaying not the SRC at number 5, it's going to be setting it at index. So it was 0, and then it should go to 1, and then if I keep clicking that button, it's going to increment. There is going to be a problem, however. So what happens if we keep clicking? And you can write down that answer. So let's start by copying this code. Oops, get all of it. And over here, over here at the code, I'm going to replace that with this. Nice to get it all lined up. So when I call begin, increment index is going to get its current value, add 1 to it, reassign index to that new number, and then it's going to display this path. All right, so it's starting at 0, then it's going to get the first one, it's going to be displaying that, and it should go all the way through. Problem is that when we keep incrementing, we're going to get to the end of our list, and a problem should occur. So that looks good up to a point. I'm going to save it and refresh. There's me again. And now when I click, there's image 1, slightly bluish, kind of purpley. I don't know what color that is. Pink, I guess. Red, orangey, something else, green. And oh, there's the error. All right, so I've clicked past it, and there is no image 10, image 9. So as soon as I do that, then I'm going to get that, and I can keep clicking on it, and it's going to keep erroring because it can't find that particular value. All right. So write something that indicates what happens when that goes on. So now what I want to do is I need to write an if statement. Right? I want to test. I want to make sure that index never gets larger than the number of elements that are in my list, my array. So in my case, I've got 8. I have 9 elements. I start at 0, and the last one is at number 8. So if index is greater than 8, all right, if it's 9, then I want to reset index back to 0. So I go all the way through. When I get to the last element, what do I want it to do? I want to cycle back again. So if I did this, so here I'm incrementing index. If index, I'm going to do the test. And again, if you have 10, figure out what's the index of the last element. If it's greater than that index, then you want to reassign index back to 0. This line's going to stay the same. So all I have to do is copy this. Oops. There we go. Copy it. And I'm in between the increment of index and where I display it. I'm going to put this stuff in there, right? And that comment can go at the end of that line. And again, I like tabbing things over so it's nice and pretty. There we go. And so cycle through. If it gets to, if index is greater than 8 and it gets to 9, then reset it back down to 0 and we're off to the races. I could say if it equals it, but let's just go with greater than for now. And now when I do that, if I save and refresh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the original, right? So it's cycling through, and hey, that's pretty neat. That requires us to keep clicking every time that we want it to change. Let's get it to go automatically. So at the bottom of this, I'm going to grab this line here, this set timeout. And this is a way of taking a break and calling a method after that break is over with. So I'm going to go to my editor, and right before the end of my begin method function, that's where I want to paste in that line. So what does this mean? This means call begin, and it does all this stuff, increments index, checks to see if it's too big, then it's going to display the next image. Then it's going to wait 1,000 milliseconds, otherwise known as 1 second, and then it's going to call this same function again. So it's just going to keep cycling again and again and again until, it's never going to stop. So that it will continue to do that over and over and over again. I could change this if I wanted to happen faster. I could make this to be a smaller number. If you wanted it to wait a really long time, increment it to whatever value you want. Again, this is in milliseconds, so you can figure out how long do you want it to wait before it changes. So I'll save that and refresh again. And now when I run it, it's changing automatically. I'm not clicking. Eventually we get back to the blue shirt. There it is. And it's going to keep going. And that's every second it changes on that number. And so that's cool. Maybe I want it to be every half second. 500 milliseconds. Save and refresh. That's every half second. I want it to be every 1/10 of a second. That would be 100. Save, refresh. That's every 1/10 of a second. Very stylish. That might get old after a while. So there are a couple things that I'd like you to do, or that you can do, that's kind of cool. One is that I'd like you to put a link on this that goes to your index page. Put one on your index page that comes to this page. And the other thing that I'm going to show you now. It's not on the list. Maybe I'll add it there. But how do you get this to stop? Well, you could hit the refresh button, but maybe I wanted to do it automatically. And so to do it automatically, right now we're just calling this, and that's the end of it's off to the races. What I can do is I can do this where I keep track of every time that I finish a full loop. And I'm going to create another variable here, and I'm going to call it time. And I'll set it to nothing. I'll just initialize it. So it's not set to anything right now. Every time I do this, all right, so when I get to this if statement, I know I'm all the way through my array. And so I'm going to say, I'm going to increase loop count. So I'm going to increment loop count. And that's all fine and well. So loop count is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What I want to do now is I'm going to do an if statement. So if loop count is less than some value, maybe I want it to stop 5 times. I started at 0. I'm going to add 1 to it. So when it's 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, I'm going to allow this to happen. And what I do here is I'll do those curly braces, take that guy out, and I'm going to set that time equal to this. Seems a kind of a weird thing to do. Otherwise, and this is going to stop it, time is going to equal clear timeout. I think it's open and close parentheses. I'm only doing one line on that. So for those that have coded before know that I don't have to put the curly braces when it's just one line, but this makes it simpler, I guess. I can see with that all of these guys have the opens and the closes, and we're all good. All right, so I'm setting the timeout. If this is true, I got to close parentheses. Otherwise, in all other cases, so loop count is either less than 5 or it's not less than 5. And once that happens, then the timeout's going to stop. Let's see if that actually works. It's a big if. So refresh and start, and it's cycling through, and it stops. So that's giving me, I can hit it again. That's oh, you know what? It's that variable is still greater than is greater than 5. So that one more thing here that I have to do is if I wanted to go into the 5, I'm going to set loop count equal to 0. All right. So when I get to 5 times, clear it, set loop count back to 0. The next time that I click on the button, it's going to loop it that many times. Let's see if that does what I want it to do. Refresh, start, and it's going along, and eventually it stops. There it goes. And if I click on a second time, it's going to keep going. Hey, that's kind of cool. So we keep cycling through. Eventually we put the brakes on it so that it's not utterly annoying. And there you go. That's a pretty cool little web page. Hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know. And, again, have a good break. All right. Talk to you later.